Well, the Titans are on a bye week, and instead of trying to take on the Titans and what they're doing this week, and eventually falling into the depression that is the Titans season, why not take a look at our buddies over in the AFC South? Texans, Colts, Jags. See how they're doing, and see how I think we're going to stack up against them. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans rundown, I guess AFC South rundown for this episode. But in today's episode, we are going to be talking about our buddies in the AFC South. Like I said, Colts, Jags, Texans. We're going to see how they're doing, and we're going to see how we think the Titans can stack up against them. Some results may be more shocking than others. I know y'all will be completely surprised with some of my takes on these teams, specifically the Texans. And who knows, maybe my take on the Texans is just me being a bitter Titans fan. But it's my opinion. So anyway, before we do that, though, I do want to mention that the Titans did work out Carl Lawson. I forgot to mention that recently, but we need edge depth, so I think that's a good thing for the Titans. And we play the Colts next week. Yeah, you'll see how I feel about that in just a few minutes. But anyway, let's get right on into today's show. Starting out with the Houston Texans. I'm just going to bite the bullet immediately, but the Houston Texans played the Buffalo Bills, and they barely beat the Buffalo Bills 23-20, and it was an absolute thriller throughout it, man. Like, it was a very fun football game to watch. And Nico Collins with that huge touchdown, that saved one of my fantasy leagues. So, as much as I hate to see the Texans win, him having that touchdown made my lineup look better this week. So I'm not complaining. All right. Yeah. So I don't think that the Texans are as good as people are saying. I know, before you get your pitchforks and knives out, and try and kill me over this, standing outside of my house talking to me about how I don't know jack about football, hear me out. Okay, so game one, they barely beat the Anthony Richardson-led Colts. Not the Joe Flacco Colts, the Anthony Richardson Colts. And I think that there's a stark difference between those two. I feel like that they are worse with Anthony Richardson. I mean, they're still not that great either way, but we'll get to that later. So they barely beat the Colts in week one. And the only thing that people will tell you about that game is how Anthony Richardson made an insane throw, but they won't tell you about how he was like 9 for 20 in that game or something. And that's not the saddest QB stat line that there has been. Then they play Then they play the Bears. They look pretty unimpressive in that game, and they fall. And then they end up being 2-0 after playing two mediocre teams. If they played the Bears with a fully developed Caleb Williams, I'm not too sure if I would be talking about the Texans winning that football game. But anyway, moving on. Week 3, they get pummeled by the Minnesota Vikings, which is the reason that I am so confused about this team and the reason that I'm not completely sold on them. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Sam Darnold has looked really good, except for that one game where he didn't, but he's been pretty solid. It's just, losing to the Vikings in that fashion whenever you're supposed to be a great team as well. I mean, like, for goodness sakes, the Jets almost led a game-winning drive on them, and, well, as you saw by the news, as of recording today, Robert Saleh got fired. So, are we going to give them all the credit in the world because they beat a team that was about to fire their head coach and had dysfunction written all over them? I don't know. But next thing, then they go in and barely beat the Jaguars, who may be the worst team in all of football. But again, we'll get to that later. I can't believe this. I guess going with the Texans first kind of reveals what I think about the other AFC South teams, but still barely beat the Jags, and credit to them, CJ Stroud leads a very good game-winning drive, but still. Then they have played the Bills this past weekend, and you're thinking, that's a quality win. Nope. Let's take a look at this. Josh Allen was 9 of 30 on the day. If he even gets that up to 50%, then I feel like that this game is a little bit closer than it was in the stat sheet. But also, I just want to say, I think it's so funny that Stephon Diggs was the leading receiver in this game and that he had more yards than all the Bills receivers combined. Now, do I think that's different with Khalil Shakir out there? maybe. But still, I just found that pretty funny. What else is there? Oh, yeah. They had to put in Mitch Trubisky at one point. Not saying that that had any impact on the game because it was like for a very hot second. But still, I mean, that has enough to kill team morale. But we've also got to talk about one more thing. 5-yard line. You throw it 3 times in a row. You feel like after the first time you would be like, okay, maybe I could, just run the clock out, go into overtime. But and especially after the second time, you should be like, okay, got to be smart here. Just run the ball, let the thing go into overtime. But no, you throw it 3 times in a row. You punt it to Robert Woods, who immediately gets in the field goal range because he has such an easy path to it. He literally has to run 5 yards to get it. So anyway, yeah. Do I think the Texans are bad? No, I think the Texans are a really good football team. Okay, there's a reason they went 10-7 last year and may end up improving on that this year. But I don't think they're as good. I don't think they're as good as people are hyping them up to be. So for that, I will say the Titans, small chance of beating them. I'm not going to say, or small chance of holding their own against them. I'm not going to stand up here and be like, yep, Titans, you heard it here first. They're going to beat the Texans. No, I'm not going to say that because I think that would be really stupid, honestly. But anyway, moving on, these two teams play each other this week, so that makes it easier. And an absolute thrilling battle of 2 very mediocre teams. You see, whenever you get 2 bad teams together and mix them into one game, somehow the game just becomes 10 times more entertaining because their bads equal out to the point where it's a good football game. But anyway, the Colts played against the Jags this weekend, and golly, that was you want to talk about a fun game to watch. Just look at that. Joe Flacco is the QB1 Grim Reaper. Dude, he needs to get like a starting gig somewhere, dude, because you see what happens. He has a good head coach, good offensive coordinator. The dude just plays good football right now. I don't know how or why it's happening. For goodness sakes, somehow he is better right now than he was in his prime after the Super Bowl. I don't understand it. But anyway, so the Jags and Colts defense both look really bad, so that would cancel out our weakness. And our strength right now is our defense and our run game. The Colts run defense is absolutely disastrous. I mean, it is horrible. The Colts defense is bad enough to where we will give them fits, okay? The run game, dude, I know that Tony Pollard was watching that Colts run defense and was just like, ooh, man, I cannot wait to go get myself in on that run defense. I cannot wait to absolutely destroy them, dude. It ain't going to be pretty. That's for sure. And that's really all my thoughts that I have on them. I don't think they're that great, even with Anthony Richardson, who, from what I heard, I thought he was supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but hey, I might have heard completely wrong. I can't really be talking because we have Will Levis at quarterback, who we hyped up all off season. So anyway, yeah, no, I can't remember most of their schedule, but I do know that they lost to the Texans in week 1 and that they have continued to just look blah over these past few weeks, apart from whenever they played against the Steelers and had Joe Flacco in there. That was a good game. But anyway, on the beatable scale, I would say that I would give us maybe a 40% chance, because I still think the Colts are better than us, unfortunately. And I think that Will Levis would cause enough turnovers to the point where we would lose to them. But I think that it'll be a lot more competitive with them than people are expecting it to be. Okay, now we got the final team. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Remember a few years ago when this was supposed to be their division to run? Deshaun Watson, not Deshaun Watson. I can't remember his name now. Sorry, Trevor Lawrence. 2 polar opposite dudes, but anyway. Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the prince who was promised. He was, literally, he had a whole slogan for it, Tank for Trevor. I can't remember what Peyton Manning had, but I know that Andrew Luck had Suck for Luck. Whenever you have a slogan, whenever you're going into the NFL draft, you're supposed to be a big deal. And dude, after that first year, everybody was just like, man, this guy's going to be a bust. Everybody was like, hey, look, maybe we should be a little concerned about, this, but it's year one. Then in year two, they start out pretty rough, and then they end off the year well. They go 9-8, make the playoffs. And then that gave Jaguars fans the biggest heads that they could possibly ever have. Whenever they said, yep, we got this in the bag, dude. Like, we are going to be the AFC South Kings for the next 15 years. And then they went 8-2 to start out last year, and it looked like that they were right. But then they lose, let me think, 6 out of their last 7 games and miss the playoffs. And one of those games was against the Tennessee Titans. You're welcome, NFL. But dude, it's kind of sad to watch, honestly, the fall from grace that this team took. Like, they looked like that they were one of the future team of the NFL, one of the future AFC contenders, but then they just fell off a cliff, dude. Like, it was hard to watch. But anyway, we sit here and they got blown out by the Bills on Monday Night Football. Then they lost to the Texans, and they lost all 4 of they lost their first 4 games up until this week whenever they played the Colts, where they just out-offensed them straight up. Also, Brian Thomas Jr., you're my guy. Again, another fantasy dude that I have. I have a lot of in-division fantasy football guys. Maybe I should change that a little bit, but anyway, on the beatability scale, I give us, honestly, I think that we have a 60 to 70% chance of beating them whenever they come into Nissan or whenever we go down to Duval. Like, I'm just saying, man, they are not good. Like, I think they might honestly be worse than us, and that's saying a lot. So anyway, overall, AFC South is a lot more up for grabs than most people will make you think. I'm not saying that we're going to beat out the Texans for first in the division or anything stupid like that, but I am saying that we could definitely get second or third place in the division. I do not think we will get last place in the division. And also, Will Levis could still get better. The coaching staff could start figuring things out. What else is there? Mason Rudolph could come in. No, I'm playing. I'm messing around. Don't worry, Levis fans. I'm not trying to insinuate anything there. So, again, the entire AFC in general this year is so weird and wide open that is kind of mind-boggling. I wasn't expecting the AFC to look like they do right now, but anyway, that's today's episode. Not that much talk about the Titans. This was the AFC South rundown this week. I know. What a wonderful episode. But anyway, I have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok all under the Titans rundown if y'all want to go check those out. And I also have, I don't have anything else. Anyway, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.